Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
Welcome, everyone. It's Monday night. It's the Scottish Football Social Club and Premier Sports in association with McBookie. Also available as a podcast, by the way. I'm not sure how, but it is. I've not heard it via podcast, but it is available. Give it a go. We can see maybe next week if we can get Alan and Michael into podcasts. Anything can change. Anything can change. This show comes to you, by the way, after what was the biggest weekend of the season so far. Not for Michael, not for me, but for Alan Hutton, who hit the big four. Oh, Alan, many congratulations. How does it feel?
It's just another day, Darryl, if I'm totally honest. Just a number that changes. So I got on with it. I was at a good game of football, and that was it.
Tell me you got a wee night out, though, before you went to Tynecastle. Tell me you did something fun.
I'd done something with the family, and that went out for a meal and that sort of thing. But it was quiet because my birthday was actually on Saturday and I was working Sunday. So you need to be careful. You need to watch what you're doing. So change times.
Hold on. That level of professionalism is never going to stand up, Michael. Not in this game, is it?
Well, considering he was worse than that when he was playing, I can't imagine that he's not doing that when he stopped.
Oh, no. Let's not go there. I'm more professional now. I'm older. I'm wiser. And I'm, change me.
And you're 40.
Let's stop reminding everybody. I didn't tell anybody for a reason.
People say life starts at 40. I can't say that was the truth for me, Michael. Life kind of went away to a weird angle for me at 40. Very strange. That was health-wise, of course, and maybe I'll get better, but who knows. But Michael, what about you? 40 for you? What changed?
Back end of COVID, sat in my back garden, just me and my wife, and I ended up walking up the main road at about 2 a.m, and obviously not a soul about, just getting a bit of fresh air, contemplating what life was going to be like at 40.
Everyone had ditched you by then, obviously. The wife was in bed, you're on your own. What a night, eh? That is big time. Well, Alan, since it was your big birthday, I think just if you don't mind, Michael, just for Alan this week, should we start on Rangers? Should we go with Rangers at the very top? It wasn't the most exciting game in the world of Perth, was it, Alan? But it was a victory for Rangers off the back of what was a really good win in the Europa League in Nice. So this has been not a bad few days for Philippe Clement, but still some question marks because it wasn't convincing, was it?
No, I mean, yeah, you're right. It was a good week in Europe. They just can't seem to get that form into the league. But look, I thought St Johnstone started well under Simo Valakari. They like to play football and move it about, but Rangers struggled for the first little bit. But they then got hold of the game into the second half. They created opportunities. It's the same old thing. They're creating stuff. Michael likes to say that the game passes a lot of them by, and he's right. The likes of Bayrami and guys. Egerman gets another opportunity up front. But look, they're creating opportunities. I mean, they restricted St Johnstone to one shot on target. But the big thing for me was to get the victory. It doesn't matter by hook or by crook. You get the 3 points and you move on. But in terms of overall play, it's kind of the same. We're used to saying the same thing, seeing the same thing. Is it getting better? Ever so slightly, but still the same.
That was the highlight, by the way. Just the goal. We didn't have much more to bring anyone this week. But Tavernier was involved, Alan, and the captain was spoken after the game. He's spoken since the match as well. What's absolutely crystal clear is that he still wants to start every match. There's a lot of pride still there, but he's dealt with this pretty well. He's been very professional. You would expect that from the club captain. Of course you would. But a lot of players may have acted differently. Toys do come out the pram at times, don't they?
Yeah, well, I can only speak from my experiences, and I know I could have been a bit of a hothead at times, and it wouldn't have sat pretty with me if I'm being totally open and honest. So the way he's conducted himself, I think, has been excellent. He's been there for a long period of time. He's been the go-to guy for a number of years when it comes to goals and assists and all that sort of thing. So to get to the age that he's at, and it's chopping and changing, his performances haven't hit the level that he showed previously, but he's staying professional. He's working hard, and when the opportunity comes again, you have to be able to take it. It wasn't his goal, of course, but he was in the right place at the right time to put the pressure on Holt, who ends up putting it in. But he's conducted himself well, and that's all he can continue to do.
What would you have done, Max?
I went absolutely ballistic. I'd have been chatting manager's door every 2 minutes. But I would have known that my performances weren't at the level. Because you know yourself when you're not playing the way that you can, and he obviously knows that. So you can sense it coming. There's a change. You're getting pressure for the likes of Sterling, Casemiro at the time as well. So you do know, but it still wouldn't have sat nice with me. I'd have still been raging.
What do you think? I mean, and I'm pretty sure it's obviously nobody can really put their finger on it, but how on earth, when you look at the season as a whole, when you look at the Malmo game, you look at the FCSB, the Bucharest game, and now Nice as well, the 1-1 draw in Olympiacos, if you take away the Lyon game, you look at the European performances and the results in general, why? How is it that
I don't know.
So much better?
I think that's the $1 million question. Why is that happening?
But Alan,
do they play with more of a freedom, or does it more suit the style of play under the manager? I genuinely can't put my finger on it, but I feel like
you've seen a lot of these matches, but the European games, teams really go for Rangers, and some of the domestic matches. Just think about some of the games recently. Dundee United at Ibrox, the game again at the weekend. I know St Johnstone tried to have a bit of a go in the first half, but they do sit deeper, and Rangers don't often seem to have the guile to unlock defences. Is that the difference?
It's the biggest problem. And you're right with what you say. I think a lot of these European teams, they do come and have a go, whether it's home or away, and it leaves opportunities for Rangers to go and exploit. But when they are playing domestically and they're playing against a team that's maybe more defensive, because it's very side to side, and yes, they're keeping possession, but they're not really hurting teams. It's not really penetrating teams enough, runners going forward, kind of the way that they play the game. You just don't really see it. They're waiting for something to happen. Maybe give it to Cherny. Can he come up with a little bit of magic? I liked actually Hadji coming back in to that kind of central role. I think he could be maybe the difference maker going forward. Well, hopefully. But I think that's where the problem is at this moment in time.
What about Proper? Again, like the Killie game, when he comes off at half-time, and you could almost tell in the first half, it was like he wasn't fancying it. And you look at yesterday, again, off at half-time, and he's been talking about how, I'll be one of the first names on the team sheet when the season starts, getting deeper into it. And most of the teams play long ball. But,
Michael, that's a worry. See what he said? That's a worry. For me, anyway.
Would you not think, like, that's a red flag, and any other team looking at that going, he doesn't fancy this domestically. Get right up and at him, get him on the back foot.
And I think that's what they've done. See the first 10, 15 minutes, I think they targeted Proper, to be quite honest with you. And it was a worry reading what he was saying when he was talking about how teams play long ball and he's not used to that and it's going to take him time to settle in. No, you're a central defender. Of course, technically, he's half decent on the ball, but you have to go and be aggressive with whoever you're up against. And at times, the red flag's been there. Does he fancy it? Kilmarnock, little injury, had to go off. And then I'm hearing, obviously, at the start of the game, because we were travelling through, but I was listening to it on the radio, and they were saying how they were targeting Proper. And then he had a little injury, he was stretching, he was kind of doubled over, and then, of course, he goes off at half-time. So that's really worrying.
Is it fair to say anyway, Alan, you think Balogun is the better option in the biggest games?
I think so. I think he's the one that's got pace. I think Souttar's come onto a game, he's doing well.
He's more physical as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. But I think he's got that turn of pace as well. But the question mark over him is, at his age, can he play every 3 days? Can he play in Europe? Can he come back? Can he travel? Can he go and play these? And obviously the manager doesn't feel that he can. I mean, Proper was meant to be the guy that come in and taken over Connor Goldson, but it's kind of not come to fruition. So there's an opportunity there, and I just don't think Proper's grabbing it.
Balogun, I think, Michael, if you look back, actually, history would say he doesn't often play 2 games in a week. He's often rotated. So maybe that is going to be the case moving forward. But still, Balogun, a lot of the Rangers fans seem to be saying on social media that he would be the preference. Dujon Sterling missed the game at the weekend, Alan, as well. And that's a player, I know the manager said it was a block there, but that's a player that Rangers need to get back pronto, because they've got these games ahead. I know they've got Killie first and Ross County, but then on the horizon, Spurs, Celtic and others, a cup final clearly against Celtic. So they need to make sure somehow he's fit, because he was excellent in Europe again, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I really like him at right back, and I think it's about time now that he nailed down a position. It is good that he can play in several and he can cover different positions, but I think right back is for him, and I think that's where his future will be moving forward. But to have a nerve issue, I mean, that's a whole different ball game, because Could it be a week? Could it be a month? We'll have to wait and see. And by the way the manager was talking, you would think that he would have played against St Johnstone, because he spoke about wanting them back as soon as possible. And as you rightly say, some of the big games that are coming up where defensively you're really going to need them. And that's the big thing for me. If you want to get anything against the likes of Celtic, up against Maeda, you need someone like Sterling who can try and maintain them and control them.
That 3 days, and you're talking about, playing 2 games in 3 days, that 3 days in the middle of December that's coming up is absolutely monumental for Rangers, because they're doing well in the Europa League, and you're wondering, what do they do with that Spurs game? Because let's be honest, there's a fear that if they don't perform, they could be on a hiding potentially 3 days before a cup final against their biggest rivals. And if you play your strongest team in that game, how well prepared are you for the cup final, where there's equally a fear that some folk thinking it could be a hiding in the cup final as well? I mean, you really couldn't wish for a worse sort of 2 games. Ange Postecoglou going back to Ibrox.
I'd rather take the hiding in Europe, I think.
But do you know, it's an interesting one what Michael raises here. Alan, how would you approach that then? Because you look at the Rangers bench, there's a few more players there at the weekend, but now more injury question marks. There's been youngsters coming on recently in the Europa League as well. Do they have enough players, enough quality to rotate against Spurs? I mean, what you don't want to do is get absolutely battered. The goal difference could still be important as well, remember?
No,
in this
of
big
course.
Group phase now.
Of course, look, it's a huge game. Yeah, confidence is the big thing for me. Like, if you know what it's like, you go and get a hiding against, obviously, Tottenham, and then you're going into such a big game. But I just don't think at this moment in time they have the squad strength and depth to be able to really rotate the way they would maybe want to. You look at Celtic. Have they got a hard European game? Then they've got a game, obviously, at the weekend, and then they're moving into the Aberdeen game. Brendan's looking at his squad, rotates it, knowing that it's still good enough to go and win. I just don't think Rangers are at that stage at this moment in time. So, look, it's a conundrum that he's going to have to deal with. He won't want to get a heavy defeat, obviously, against Tottenham, and you think Ange is going to come up and have his team right up for it. But for me, the cup final is the big one. That's absolutely huge. Europe is as well, but the cup final, first trophy of the season, against your biggest rivals, you have to go and put a marker down at some stage.
Yeah, and they are in a good place in Europe. Yeah,
I was just going to say, there's no question at the cup final, because it's a one-off, and in Europe at the moment, Rangers are in a great position. I mean, they're going to jump over the playoff round at the moment, the position they're in the Europa League table. So they do have a bit of leeway there. But I just think it's a really fascinating conundrum for all the reasons we're talking about. Not a big squad, or not a big enough squad, coming up against top quality opposition with that extra bit of needle, or not needle, but the extra dynamic of Ange Postecoglou going back to Ibrox, and everything that entails with this cup final 3 days later. And obviously Celtic have got a European tie, but they've got 2 extra days. It's 2 days before. It's against Dinamo Zagreb, which, greatest respect to Dinamo Zagreb, it's not as difficult a tie as Spurs, and it doesn't have the same.
Is that a home game?
It's away. It's also the early kickoff, so you would imagine Celtic would get back on Tuesday night as well, which might help. It all helps. But Alan's absolutely right.
And they've got a bigger squad.
And you only have to look at the Ross County game at the weekend. Let's have a look at those highlights, because, Michael, when you can bring in players like Luke McCowan, who was fantastic again, and Ida, and Valle, and Scales, Bernardo, Forrest, and still win this comfortably, that says it all, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. And I mean, it's the ideal game, at home against Ross County, to be able to mix it up a little bit. I just thought that Luke McCowan was outstanding. I was, watching the game, and I was saying myself personally, now I know Bernardo scores there, but Luke McCowan also scored a great goal from Cal McGregor as well there. Mm-hmm. For me, I think personally, and I thought this even before this game, I think Luke McCowan should be in the discussion for, if you're looking at Engels not playing, then I think Luke McCowan is up there. I would personally be playing him ahead of Paulo Bernardo. Right, so Aberdeen midweek, and then looking ahead some of the big European games, the cup finals. What is the best Celtic midfield 3 right now? What's the best combination for you, Michael? Well, obviously the thing, not the caveat, but the thing that needs to be thought about here is that he is cup tied for the Premier Sports Cup. He can't play in that.
But
So,
what I mean is, on the biggest day, whether it's a European game, whatever it is, what is the best Celtic midfield three for you right now?
Right now, well, I mean, obviously, I think it goes without saying that, Cal McGregor and Hatate are the two. And at the moment, there's the discussion about Engels dropping off. And I don't have any great concern about Arne Engels, because he's already shown that he's capable. And I think he's got all the attributes. He came in and he hit the ground running straight away. And yes, it's sort of dropped off a little bit. But
so you're giving him time. You didn't give Nicholas Kuhn time, but you're not giving him the same treatment. You're giving him some time.
Yeah, because we saw straight away what he was capable of. That's why. That's why, Darryl.
Kuhn just took a little bit longer just to find his feet, and now he's flying.
Yeah. But
anyway, sorry, I interrupt, Michael. On you go.
Yeah, but
finish your point.
The key in all that was that he took a long time to find it. Engels found it straight away, and now he's sort of disappeared away. I don't have a concern about him, but right at this moment in time, personally, I would have McGregor, Hatate, and McCowan.
So
McCowan ahead of Bernardo. Alan, you agree with that?
I do. I mean, I think I've seen him enough this season when he was at Dundee, and I thought he was an excellent player. He got the move, and the question mark was, is he capable of breaking into that team? And with his cameo performances, when he was getting minutes here and there, you could tell that he wasn't phased. He just took it all in his stride. Yep. He played the same way that he played when he was at Dundee. And I think, with no disrespect to Dundee, with better players round about them, you will see the best of him. Absolutely. And I think he'll grow in stature as time goes on. He'll improve. He'll get better under Brendan Rodgers. And I think we'll see an even better player in the future.
And he's a goal threat. He's a real goal threat as well. I mean, for me, and I know obviously he's not playing every week for Celtic at the moment, but I think he's of the standard that he would or should be knocking on the door for the national team as well. I think he's of that calibre, no question.
We were talking Lennon Miller with John McGinn last week, weren't we? There's a few midfielders on the horizon for Scotland, perhaps coming into that squad in the future, which is great news, isn't it? Right, Aberdeen away next, which is a fantastic midweek game, Michael. There'll be memories from the Dons' point of view of the semi-final against Celtic recently, but also the league game at Celtic Park when Aberdeen came from 2 down to draw 2-2, which was an excellent result. But for Celtic, if they can go and win there, I mean, they will have full domination in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's looking good for Celtic. I don't think anybody was expecting or thinking that Aberdeen were going to be able to maintain a title push right throughout the course of the campaign. They've had a tough run of games at the moment. Obviously they've had 3 away games on the spin. They've lost St Mirren. They've drawn in the capital against Hibs and Hearts now. Now they go back to Pittodrie and they've got the toughest game of all coming up against Celtic. So you're looking at they're taking 2 points out of the last 9, and now they've got Celtic at home. It's a big one for Aberdeen, because all of a sudden you start looking at that gap, that the comfortable gap they had to Rangers, and depending on what happens on Wednesday, it could shorten very quickly. So a very, very interesting game, and I think that volume of games has certainly played its part in with Aberdeen. You look at the midweek against Hibs, then yesterday at Tynecastle as well. Jimmy Tilleen just tried to change things a little bit, rest a few players, give a bit of game time to others, and there's quality there. But I think what you've noticed is those extra games just feels, and especially being away from home, it feels like it's just paid its its toll a little bit.
Alan, what did you make of the Dons at Tynecastle, and how do you see this race for second, if you want to call it that? Is it too early to call it a race for second place in the league?
Yeah, well, I suppose it is a race for second, really, if we're going to be totally honest with ourselves. But I thought they'd done okay in spells. I think they kind of taken advantage of the substitutions that Hearts had to make with the 2 out of the 4 defenders going off when they scored their goal. But out with that, I think they looked a little bit leggy. I mean, Shayden Morris, for me, was the difference within the first half. His pace down that right-hand side, you see him here. Obviously the ball gets recycled. It's a good ball into a dangerous area, and Clarkson puts it in. But I think going into the second half, they dropped and they faded a little bit, and kind of Hearts came on it, and they looked like the team that was eventually going to go on and win it. They had some big chances there. Nicky Devlin's a little bit unlucky there to deflect it in, but I think overall it was a good performance from Hearts, but I think Michael's right. Aberdeen just look a little bit tired at this moment in time.
I mean, they were hanging on to a certain extent. Hearts were really the team in the ascendancy, and I think Aberdeen will be happy to get away with a point in the end, considering where they were just before half time. I don't know if you remember, there was a great move down the left-hand side with McGarry, McGrath and Clarkson, and what a save from Craig Gordon.
That was the best move, It was the best move.
Probably a couple of minutes before half time. That goes in 2-0. I'm not sure Hearts would have been able to find a way back because they had so much going against them yesterday, Hearts. 1-0 down, the injuries to Stephen Kingsley and Frankie Kent, the lack of confidence as well, because they're not in a great run of
four
form.
Tough games before that as well. Rangers, Celtic, the 2 European games.
Yeah. And I think if they were 2-0 down at half time at home, it would have been tough for them to come back. But anyway, they did. They got that goal, and they were the team that were in the ascendancy. So for Aberdeen, I think they were, in the end, be happy to get out of Tynecastle with a point.
Yeah. What about the Jambos then, Michael? Because you've touched on it there. It has been a really difficult spell. Alan's right, some really tough games. Cercle Bruges, I thought was really disappointing because I thought they were there for the taking. And obviously the Shankland penalty is a really big moment. Yeah. European-wise now, progression, the money that comes from that. They've still got some work to do. Petrocub, I think, in the last game at Tynecastle, obviously is a big one. And you expect 3 points there, and that should be enough at least to see Hearts through. But still, I don't know, Michael, there was a lot of momentum building up, some real positive displays. And I guess there was a bit of that against Aberdeen. But you look at the league table and it's a worry.
Yeah. And yesterday was a worry for me with regards to going 1-0 down with the injuries. Everyone I was just talking about, because if they lose that game, it's 6 defeats and 7, and that's not good by any stretch. And you then start to worry about. Yes, there was an uptick when Neil Critchley came in with performances and results, but then you worry about, even though some of those performances that the games that they've lost recently have been okay, it takes a real dent in the confidence, and you wonder, how are they going to feel psychologically to be able to turn things round again? So I think yesterday was a very important point for Hearts, and I couldn't agree with you more. Cercle Bruges were bang average, and Hearts weren't good enough. They didn't deserve anything. They weren't good enough, and that's disappointing, because I take it back to the game at home against Heidenheim, who, again, first half performance from Hearts was really good, but they didn't score, and then they got punished in the second half. If they scored in that game against Heidenheim in the first half, they don't lose it, and at that point, you've almost put Europe to bed in regards to being able to get through to the next round. And it just feels like it's a tough one to assess. Yes, performances have got better, but I think the deficiencies in the squad are now really, taking its toll on results. And it's not the easiest one to assess. I don't want to be too critical of Neil Critchley because it's not his squad. But the one concern that I do have about the manager is, and he's spoken about it himself, is that this is the biggest job that he's ever had, and at times there can be such vitriol that comes from the crowd, and I'm not sure that he's going to be capable of dealing with that. And I just hope that he gets some results so that it doesn't actually come to that.
What did you think of the Shankland, the way the crowd reacted? How bad was that? Like,
absolutely.
But see when I'm looking at it, like, he gets himself in the right areas, and it's not quite working at this moment in time. Scored 31 goals last season to get them into the situation where they're at. And you look at the players that they have, the creators, the ones that score goals. Surely they need to be looked at as well. It's not just him. Like, it feels like when I was watching him, it was as if like 100-kilo weight was on his shoulders, like as if he had to deal with so much. And I felt him having to deal with the fans, only probably a small pocket of them, reacting that way, I thought was poor.
See, yesterday, it's the first time that, like Alan's saying, you could tell before that it's obviously weighing on him. But see, watching yesterday, I felt like it was starting to creep into his performance. There was a few balls that he miscontrolled. He was stretching for things. And to me, you can put a lot of that right at the door of those punters that are like shouting abuse at him. I just think it's absolutely outrageous when Lawrence Shankland, in large part, and almost like exclusively, is the guy that has taken Hearts to where they are. And if you think about the money that he's generated because of that, you're talking about multiple millions that he's generated for the club. He's not deliberately missing penalties. He's not deliberately no scoring goals, because whether he stays at Hearts or leaves, the potential for bigger moves is dependent on him performing. So it's affecting himself. And Alan's right. Look, it's a section of the support. But I have to say this as well. Over in Belgium, there was an atmosphere, and it wasn't a nice atmosphere. Even, you know, there was a pocket of the support that really need to have a look at themselves. And it wasn't just...
What do you mean? What do you mean, Michael? Because there was loads of positivity of late as well. So what do you mean by that?
It was a toxic atmosphere.
Towards the team, or...
Everything.
I know they were booing Shankland at a certain moment in time, but in general...
There was other things that were being sung that were absolutely inappropriate. There was a toxicity that was surrounding a section of the support, and the club need to have a look at, you know, what was going on, because it wasn't good enough. It really wasn't good enough. And obviously, right at the tip of the iceberg was what happened with Lawrence Shankland. And I know that there's a lot of good supporters who weren't happy with how things panned out as well. And it shouldn't be continuing, because I do think yesterday there was a good bit of support for Lawrence Shankland amongst the crowd when things weren't going well. And that's what he needs, because it had started to affect him yesterday, I think.
The penalty obviously was a massive blow to him, but stepping up in such an important moment in the game. You see some of the comments coming in as well. I think it was Graham Gibb a moment ago, the reliance on Lawrence Shankland. This is Mason Walker. I love Shankland, but he shouldn't have been on the penalty against Cercla. It should have been Spittle. Maybe
these are all fair enough, you know, things to say, and that's what football's about. It's about opinions. But I think the good Hearts supporters, of which are clearly the vast majority, they recognise this, and these things are open for debate. But nobody should be criticising him in the way that he got that from.
Obviously, look, the undercurrent, Michael. We clearly know it's that he's the Hearts captain.
Yeah.
And he's not signing a new contract.
Is that why? Is that the biggest problem?
It's got to be that, Michael, right? And there's a few Hearts fans, because I've read it online. You've probably heard it yourself. There's a few Hearts fans that believe that he should not be captain if he doesn't want to commit his future to the football club, regardless of what happened in the past. So they're questioning everything about him right now, I think. And I just wonder how this is going to play out now, because the next few weeks, I think I've said this before in the show, but the next few weeks for Lawrence Shankland, probably the most important few weeks in his career, Michael, because he's got one maybe major big contract left in him. Who knows? Maybe more than that. But at the moment, it's just gone a little bit pear-shaped, and the clubs that were queuing up maybe are going one by one at the moment. You just wonder if he'll end up staying at Hearts. I don't know how it's going to play out, but there's definitely an undercurrent to the situation, Michael.
Yeah, and it's not, it's not pleasant. It's not easy, and it's like in it. And I'll tell you, like when you're winning games, and you're, for Lawrence, obviously, when you're scoring goals, you could do anything you want. You can walk on water as far as a lot of the fans and the punters are concerned. But for any football player or any team, as soon as you don't win and it goes on a long run, everything gets scrutinised. Everything. Things that perhaps before folk just shrugged their shoulder at and went, didn't worry about it. All of a sudden now everything's looked at and scrutinised and pulled apart. And I can understand some of the Hearts supporters thinking, if he's not going to commit, but from what we're led to believe, there isn't even an offer on the table at the moment from the club.
They had an open discussion, I think he said, didn't he? So you would imagine he said to them at the moment he wants to wait and see anyway. So maybe an offer would come, Michael, if there's a chance that he would sign it.
Again, you would think so, but we don't know. And even if there was going to be an offer, you would imagine from the club's perspective, and this is the harsh reality of football, they're probably thinking to themselves, well, are we going to offer the top that we were offering before, or are we going to pull it down slightly? That's the harsh reality of football.
That's probably what would happen.
It's
only going that way at this moment in time.
Yeah.
But you wonder if mentally, like him coming into this season, in his mind, he thought he'd probably be away. But do you know what I mean? Like, because he's not hit the heights of last season, and that was obviously always going to be very difficult with the numbers that he had. You're going to go through spells like this, I suppose, as a striker. But just if he was going into the off season thinking, well, my future's maybe elsewhere, and then coming back, it didn't happen, and then you're back into it. It's not a great start. They struggled under Naismith. He then leaves. The form continues a little bit, and it becomes difficult.
Right.
How's it going to play out, Michael? How do you see it in January onwards now?
In terms of where do I see Lawrence Shankland next season?
Where's he going to end up? I mean, is it? I suppose. Look, it depends a lot on the next few weeks, doesn't it? Because if he turns this around, starts scoring goals, then this debate is put to one side.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? I think it's nigh on impossible to call what's going to happen, because there's just too many variables between now and the end of the season. But the one thing I would say for certain is that all of this has only gone to highlight even more the ludicrous position that Hearts have allowed themselves to be in now, having not brought, never mind one, but potentially two strikers in the summer. Because if Lawrence Shankland was to leave, hypothetically, at the end of the season, you can't just bring one in, because we're already talking about, well, Lawrence Shankland, that they need another, maybe two others. So you're looking at, if Lawrence Shankland leaves this summer, Hearts are going to have to go and find two, maybe three strikers.
Is there money for them to do that, Michael?
They're going to try and address it in January.
Have they got money for that? Like, have they got the money to go?
Well, they've got the analytics, Alan. So maybe
they'll plug it into the computer and then see what happens.
Well, obviously, January is something they have to try and look at. It's a difficult one as well for Neil Critchley, this situation, Alan, isn't it? Because he's just really in the door. And you've got the question marks over the captaincy, who should have the armband. But if he comes in as new manager and takes it off Lawrence Shankland right away and appeases some of the fans, then that's the headlines from the off. And it's probably something he could do without.
Yeah, I think that's a huge decision. I think he probably wanted to come in and just kind of a little bit of stability to everybody around about. I just genuinely thought at the start of the season, it was very much formations were changing, personnel was changing, things were kind of moving about quite a lot. And then he's just come in and just, this is how we're going to play. This is what we're going to do moving forward. And look, see, to be fair, I was actually going to ask Michael this earlier. The games, even as hard as they've been in them all. They've had opportunities, if they were clinical, to go and take the lead and possibly win these games, and we'd be having a whole different discussion. They've not taken their chances. Ultimately, they've been beat or whatever, and it's been difficult. So right now, when I sit and look at them, I don't know, like, do they have enough to get out the situation they're in? I do see in certain games, but it's that full 90-minute performance that they're missing. Is Neil Critchley the guy to get that out of them? We'll have to wait and see.
They've got an easier run of fixtures, a better run of fixtures, I should say, Michael, around the corner. They have played really well. I mean, look, for all we're saying here, there has been a lot of positivity. The new manager has brought a style.
Yeah, he has, but, you know, some of the performances have been better, a lot of them. But the point I was making before was, since the Heidenheim game, it's been a tough run of games, but you're now... My real, and that's why yesterday was such a big point for them, because I just felt, as I mentioned earlier on, you lose that, all of a sudden you've lost 5 in a row, 6 out of 7, and that plays on anybody's mind. And when you're talking about the games that are coming up, they're thick and fast, and there's the European games which are still very important. Yeah. You've got Copenhagen, in 2 weeks' time, away from home. And Europe's still in the balance now. As much as you look at that Petrokop game just before Christmas and you think, oh, well, we should win that and get through. You just can't, if you're going into that game and all of a sudden all the pressure's on it and your league form's not particularly great and you're still sitting bottom of the table, it just takes on a life of its own. So I'm like Alan as well, where I find it hard to really definitively say, oh, they'll be fine and they'll get out of it. Because sometimes things just spiral. And at the moment, they've not been able to drag themselves out of it.
I'll say I think they'll be fine. Honestly, I've seen them a lot recently. I think they'll be fine, genuinely.
It's nice to see you taking yourself off the fence.
It's not really my job, to be fair, but I'm sticking my neck out. I think they'll be fine, and I like the new manager so far. I think he's done some good stuff. It doesn't help, of course, Michael, when Hibs are winning, and they're picking up points again now. That was a second league win of the season for David Gray. He needed it, but they looked good against Motherwell.
Yeah, they did. They did. And look, after the Aberdeen game, which was just full of grit and determination, which has been lacking all season long, it was so important that this game at Fir Park, away from home, that they turned up and produced similarly.
What about the defending?
What about the goalkeeping? Oh my God.
We'll come to Motherwell, but let's just stick with Hibs, Michael, because a week ago on this show you were questioning a lot of things, mentality, desire, everything about some of these players.
Well, absolutely. And look, these two games don't say that it was wrong to suggest that before, because it was clear for all to see that they were quite rightly being questioned. Equally, you then have to say they've turned up in the last two games and actually shown that they do have a bit about them. And that's what I was saying after the Aberdeen game. It was key that they did it again against Motherwell. Otherwise, it's very easy to turn and go, that was a flash in the pan, it was a one-off. But it's not. They've done it. And now, all of a sudden, it feels like it's a bit of momentum. They've got something to actually build from. He's changed the system, obviously. He's gone to a back three. And it looks, even though obviously they conceded 3 against Aberdeen, in large part down to some terrible defending and goalkeeping. But away from home, kept a clean sheet. It's so many positives for Hibs there. And obviously off the bottom of the table as well.
They needed a clean sheet desperately. Obviously, they've changed the goalkeeper in the last couple of games as well. Alan Joe Bursick was having a nightmare. That had to happen. So for Jordan Smith to be in goal, to make sure he got that clean sheet, that's another important one ticked off.
Yeah, and because I think he had a shaky game against Aberdeen as well. So to kind of back that up with a better performance, and as you rightly put it, a clean sheet, I think is what they needed. But what I've seen in the last couple was a real fight. And I'm not saying they didn't have it in previous games, but it was obvious that they were actually playing for the manager. There was a real desire to go and get a result. They played really well. Some of the goals, from their point of view, were really well worked. Nicky Cadden's balls in, obviously from wide, are very dangerous, these free kicks. So there was a real fight and desire within the team, but they need to continue that way. They need to really fight from now on to get up that table, but they've definitely got the players, if they're all on it, to be able to do that.
Even more of an important win, I think, Michael, when you just look ahead to the fixtures that they've got, because I see trips to Celtic Park, Pittodrie and Tynecastle on the horizon. That Edinburgh derby is going to be amazing to watch, spicy, given what's going to be on the line. But tough games to come. So it was so vital that they sorted this out now in terms of getting some points on the board.
Aye, definitely. Because, I mean, look, see, when, like for Hibs and Hearts, the two of them, when you're big clubs like that are down the bottom of the table, like, where you just really shouldn't be, and you're on the runs of form that they're on, there's no easy game. You're looking at it going like, oh my word, where are they going to pick up? So it is so important that they have just picked up a few points there, because it's amazing how quickly the psychology can turn, and then all of a sudden you're looking at games going, by the way, I think we could get something there. Oh, we could get some. And that is invaluable to have just an uplift in the positivity in regards to actual players and belief, because they're going to need it, because there is some big games, as you quite rightly pointed out, coming up between now and the turn of the year.
Alan, would you put your neck in the line here and say Hibs will be okay?
It's like the Hearts situation. I mean, they've definitely got the players there, if they're playing at the top of their ability, that they can clear the table. There's no doubt about it. But it's just whether they can do that consistently and which one of the clubs is going to. But I don't know if I can get myself off the fence. I don't know when it comes to the two teams for Edinburgh.
Things can change so fast, so quickly in Scottish football, Michael. I mean, look at Motherwell. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago in this programme, you were praising them and saying how well they were doing under Stuart Kettlewell, and the fans were not pleased at all with that display against Hibs.
No, I mean, look, understandably, because it wasn't great. It was very poor goalkeeping, particularly leaving a lot to be desired. But no, for me, I stick by that. You look at what Stuart Kettlewell's done in his time at Motherwell, and you look at obviously what he's had to work with regards to losing key players, and he's still got them competitive. And look, Motherwell are going to be there or thereabouts, knocking on the door for the top 6. They're going to have no concerns, I don't see, in terms of getting dragged down the bottom of the table. And knocking on the top 6 in part is due to so many of what you would regard as the bigger teams have an absolute nuclear season so far, but also large part down to the good work of the manager.
And Motherwell have also got some players to come back as well. They're missing experienced defenders like McGinn and O'Donnell and Lennon Miller, it feels like he was dropping. He's had the captain's armband as well, by the way, which is a lot for a young man to take on. But it feels like he's dropping deeper, trying to make the play happen a little bit more than it just being natural, like it was a few weeks ago. But anyway, off to a good start this season overall, Motherwell. So are Dundee United, Alan, and they keep on picking up points. We're talking about sure bets for the top 6. Look at the points differential. I think they're 7 points clear of the sides chasing from 7th and below. Dundee United, Jim Goodwin, looking really good for a top 6 finish.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really impressed for a newly promoted team to come up and be sitting where they are in the table. We've spoke about it before, how well they've recruited. I think there was so much action, wasn't there, towards the end of the game? If we're going to be honest, I'm interested to see what Michael thinks for the penalty decisions. But I think it's quite harsh. I think Holt's going for the ball there. I think it's relatively soft. I'm interested to see what Michael thinks.
Those penalties are often given. They're often given, though, those ones. That kind of challenge these days.
I know, but see, the thing is, there'll be a million penalties. I just don't think every challenge is a foul. And this, again, for me, is really soft. Whether you call it clever, you see a slight pull from the other angle just here. But it's still very soft.
This is a shambles, Alan, isn't it? And then to get a red card for that, that's not a red card.
Darryl,
I know there were question marks over the Dundee United goalkeeper earlier in the game. Should he have had a red or not? But regardless,
I'd be sent off every other week. If this is what people are getting sent off for nowadays, little tugs and stuff, I think it was poor. But Dundee United do well to get the points. So, but I'm interested to see what Michael thinks.
Go on, Michael.
VAR's been better this season, but oh my word. I mean, that was embarrassing. Embarrassing.
What did they get wrong? Stephen Robinson obviously was fuming after the game. So what did VAR get wrong? What did the ref get wrong, Michael?
Well,
what did they get right?
I'll work sort of in reverse here and look at the last penalty, the second penalty, the last instant. And I've seen quite a few folks saying, oh, well, look, there's a pull on the jersey. First of all, there is no way that the referee can see that pull on the jersey, by the way. And second of all, not every pull, as we've all been told, is a penalty. And you can see from the way that Louis Moll falls, they're almost static. They're not moving. Yeah. So the pull is almost irrelevant. It's not a penalty kick. It's never been a penalty kick. And then to add insult to injury, to send them off is ludicrous. Absolutely. I'll guarantee you, when he was sent over to the screen, there is not a single person in that ground of an Arab persuasion or St Mirren fan who's thinking, they're just checking to make sure that he should be getting sent off here. Nobody. Everybody's thinking. And when he comes back and he's pulled his yellow card out, you're thinking, oh yeah, he's going to say no yellow card, no penalty. And then he sends him off. You're just.
But why though? Is it because in his mind he's thinking he's going to get a shot off? So it's not an attempt to get the ball. It's a pull.
Yes, basically, yeah.
But he couldn't obviously see it. Yes. But he couldn't have seen that anyway. But what I'm saying is, you know what it's like when you're playing football? There's always coming together. There's always a little pull here or there. It's a little grab and then a let go. It's not a big get over here. I just thought it's actually laughable.
It was a dreadful decision. Let's call it what it is. It was a dreadful decision.
The first penalty, again, you need to actually look at what's happened, how it played. That touch, and I call it a touch because it's not really a kick. It's like Alan said, it's soft. That's not stopped Kevin Holt from actually planting his foot on the ground and maintaining his balance. He just touched the bottom of his boot. It's not a penalty kick.
I've seen that one given so many times. I'm not saying it is, by the way, but I've seen that one given so many times already this season.
There's ones that like that where the force is, there's a lot more force and it knocks somebody off balance. It's unfortunate because it's two people just going for the ball and one's a split second there before. That one, though, there was no force in it. And when we talk about force, on to the most ludicrous when you see goalkeepers being a protected. Holy
how high was that?
It's the knee. I mean, he's almost taken Olasanya's leg off.
See if a player done that. See if that was a player that sprinted over and bang, you're off. Yeah.
Oh, there'd be no ambiguity. They'd be actually probably talking about it should be a 6-game ban. I mean, it is unbelievable.
It wasn't studs up.
No, but it
doesn't
Darryl, it's
matter.
so high.
It's a
The force.
sledgehammer like that
You
across
think the
his knees.
force.
I know. I'm just saying
There was
6-game
force.
bans. I think you've gone a wee bit too far. I know
Well,
you. I know what you're
I'm
saying.
not
I know what
that
you're
he
saying.
should have been getting a
No, I know.
6-game
You're
ban.
saying
I'm
if it'd been
as
an
a
outfield player.
defender, I
I get
guarantee
it.
you some people would be talking about it like that.
Nah, I don't know. They wouldn't get on this show. Right, listen, we're almost out of time anyway. One more game to look at. Kilmarnock, Dundee, your local team, Killy, Alan. I guess there's got to be some concerns about them this season because we've talked about Hearts, we've talked about Hibs, we've talked about some of the other teams around them picking up points, and you keep on thinking with Kilmarnock, it's going to click again soon. We've been saying that since the European games at the start of the season. But, I mean, look, it's a draw. They picked up a point against Dundee. And they finished the game well, by the way. Bobby Wells was excellent when he came on. But still, they're not that same consistent Killy we saw last season.
Yeah, and I don't quite know what it is. I mean, they needed something. I mean, 3 defeats in a row, and then they just needed something out of the game. I don't think they started particularly well. Even Derek McInnes was right when he was obviously talking about his team. But they finished strong, and I think that's the thing. Even last week when you watch Kilmarnock, they were creating a lot of chances, but not necessarily getting what they maybe deserved. So I think with Bobby Wales coming on, scoring the goal, I mean, this is an outrageous finish, and he has another opportunity late in the game to actually win it as well.
We'll see it, and so did Watkins. He looks like a great talent, actually, doesn't he?
Yeah, but exactly, and could he be the answer moving forward? I think Vassell does really well up there. He works ever so hard. You see his little touch off for him to set up the goal, but they need to turn this around and they need to do it quick.
Love this, Alan.
No, but know what that is? He's young, he's playing with freedom. I think he scored a hat-trick midweek with the reserves. Yeah. He's playing with confidence. You can just tell. Look, even there, he's trying to dink the keeper. He's really unlucky. But I think that could be somebody that the manager will look to in obviously the coming weeks to try and quickly turn this round.
Michael, last one from you on that game.
I'm just disappointed there wasn't 5 goals late on in the injury time.
I know, it's always like that, isn't it?
I know, it's been brilliant this season. It was
How many times did they play each other as well? It's like they're playing each other every 2 weeks.
3 games in the last couple of months.
I still can't work out. I know there's an answer somewhere why they played each other at Dens back to back like that. But anyway, they did. Strange one. Right, we're out of time. Look, here's me saying before we went live tonight, maybe we'll only do half an hour and let the punters get away in this Monday night. And that's 47 minutes in the clock. So we are definitely out of time. Alan, I know you were quiet on Saturday night, but go big for us, will you? And tell us after a big celebration during the week, tell us next Monday night, all about it. Michael, you have a good week as well. We're back on the Social Club next Monday. We'll see you then. Bye for now.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.